Please. So we're on clearwaterbaha'is.org.
Yeah, we're streaming.
All right. Welcome, everyone. We are happy to be seeing you all today on this beautiful Sunday. It is another beautiful day in April 10, 2022. We are on session number 37 of Advent and Divine Justice, and we're going to be talking continuously. We've been going over this subject of Advent and Divine Justice over 36 previous sessions. We welcome you, please, to go to clearwaterbaha'is.org, to visit our YouTube channel on Clearwater Bahá'ís, that YouTube channel, and the Facebook account. We have the Baha'i Center in Clearwater. We have the Clearwater Baha'i Center. If you look up any permutation of that, you should be able to find us. We're very happy to share these sessions with you. And we're very grateful as well to the people over at the Crimson Academy. We have Ehsan Bayat, the founder of the Crimson Academy, with us, who has been gracious to provide us this beautiful course and also teach the content. Mind you, I will add, it's an updated version of the content of what he's also provided on his own channel. And you can find more on Crimson Academy if you go on YouTube and you search Crimson Academy. And it gives a lot of Baha'i books as to the teaching of the books. Like you see today, we're going to be going over a session, which will read a part of the book over time. If you are able to view these courses, you'll really get a comprehensive look at all these books, the content, and the context. With that being said, welcome, Ehsan, and I hope that we can go with this opening prayer for today, and then we move on.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Dear Ehsan, could you please pray?
Yes, thank you. O my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest. Abdul Baha. Well, dear friends, welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so we can get back into it, as they say. So in our last session, dear friends, we were covering the paragraphs. Really, we were covering paragraph 100 really in depth. And that was the paragraph that highlighted the handmaidens of Baha'u'llah. And then we covered 101 and 102. And so in this section, we're now getting into this paragraph set 103 through 107. So our last paragraphs were talking about pioneering and the stellar individuals that went pioneering. And now the beloved guardian wants to remind the friends. And who is he talking to in this the seminal text, the Advent of Divine Justice? This letter, written December 25th, 1938, was addressed to the North American Baha'i community. And so the beloved guardian wants to remind the friends, as this is literally 9 months before the opening of World War II, to remind the friends of events of unimaginable magnitude are about to happen. The beloved guardian has that insight, foresight, to see what the entire scope and scale of what is coming. So he's warning the friends of events of unimaginable magnitude. The beloved guardian also, in this paragraph set, highlights the twin processes of integration and disintegration in this paragraph set. And this is a subject, dear friends, that is highlighted in the World Order letters. In the last letter of the World Order letters goes into much greater detail than in Advent to Divine Justice. Also, we're going to touch on this because this is a much, much, much bigger subject beyond the 7-year plan. So that this is not the final plan, namely this first 7-year plan, but there will be plans after this. So the beloved guardian mentions that. So let's get to start reading these paragraphs, and then we will move on into our much deeper study. Okay, I will start off with the reading, and then we will continue. Okay, here we go. Paragraph 103. Such dearly beloved friends is the vista that stretches before the eyes and challenges the resources of the American Baha'i community in these, the concluding years of the first century of the Baha'i era. Such are the qualities and qualifications demanded of them for the proper discharge of their responsibilities and duties. Such are the requirements, the possibilities, and the objectives of the plan that claims every ounce of their energy. Who knows but that these few remaining fast fleeting years may not be pregnant with events of unimaginable magnitude, with ordeals more severe than any that humanity has as yet experienced, with conflicts more devastating than any which have preceded them. Dangers, however sinister, must at no time dim the radiance of their newborn faith. Strife and confusion, however bewildering, must never befog their vision. Tribulations, however afflictive, must never shatter their resolve. Denunciations, however clamorous, must never sap their loyalty. Upheavals, however cataclysmic, must never deflect their course. The present plan, embodying the budding hopes of a departed master, must be pursued, relentlessly pursued, whatever may befall them in the future, however distracting the crises that may agitate their country or the world. Far from yielding in their resolve, far from growing oblivious of their task, they should at no time, however much buffeted by circumstances, forget that the synchronization of such world-shaking crises with the progressive unfoldment and fruition of their divinely appointed task is itself the work of providence, the design of an inscrutable wisdom, and the purpose of an all-compelling will, a will that directs and controls in its own mysterious way both the fortunes of the faith and the destinies of men. Such simultaneous processes of rise and of fall, of integration and of disintegration, of order and chaos, with their continuous and reciprocal reactions on each other, are but aspects of a greater plan, one and indivisible, whose source is God, whose author is Baha'u'llah, the theater of whose operations is the entire planet, and whose ultimate objectives are the unity of the human race and the peace of all mankind. Reflections such as these should steel the resolve of the entire Baha'i community, should dissipate the forebodings and arouse them to rededicate themselves to every single provision of that divine charter, whose outline has been delineated for them by the pen of Abdul Baha. The 7-year plan, as already stated, is but the initial stage, a stepping stone to the unfoldment of the implications of this charter. The impulse originally generated through the movement of that pen, and which is now driving forward with increasing momentum. The machinery of the 7-year plan must, in the opening years of the next century, be further accelerated and impel the American Baha'i community to launch further stages in the unfoldment of the divine plan. Stages that will carry it far beyond the shores of the Northern Hemisphere, into lands and among peoples where that community's noblest acts of heroism are to be performed. Let anyone inclined to doubt the course which this enviable community is destined to follow turn to and meditate upon these words of Abdul Baha, enshrined for all time in the tablets of the divine plan, and addressed to the entire community of the believers of the United States and Canada. The full measure of your success, he informs them, is as yet unrevealed, its significance still unapprehended. Ere long ye will with your own eyes witness how brilliantly every one of you, even as a shining star, will radiate in the firmament of your country the light of divine guidance, and will bestow upon its people the glory of an everlasting life. The range of your future achievements still remains undisclosed. I fervently hope that in the near future, the whole earth may be stirred and shaken by the results of your achievements. The hope, therefore, which Abdul Baha cherishes for you is that the same success which has attended your efforts in America may crown your endeavors in other parts of the world, that through you, the fame of the cause of God may be diffused throughout the East and the West, and the advent of the kingdom of the Lord of hosts be proclaimed in all the 5 continents of the globe. The moment, he most significantly adds, this divine message is carried forward by the American believers from the shores of America and is propagated throughout the continents of Europe, of Asia, of Africa, and of Australasia, and as far as the islands of the Pacific, this community will find itself securely established upon the throne of an everlasting dominion. Then will all the peoples of the world witness that this community is spiritually illumined and divinely guided. Then will the whole earth resound with the praises of its majesty and greatness. No reader of these words, so vibrant with promises that not even the triumphant consummation of the 7-year plan can fulfill, can expect a community that has been raised so high and endowed so richly to remain content with any laurels it may win in the immediate future. To rest upon such laurels would indeed be tantamount to a betrayal of the trust placed in that community by Abdul Baha. To cut short the chain of victories that must lead it on to that supreme triumph when the whole earth may be stirred and shaken by the results of its achievements would shatter his hopes. To vacillate and fail to propagate through the continents of Europe, of Asia, of Africa, and of Australasia, and as far as the islands of the Pacific, a message so magnificently proclaimed by it in the American continent would deprive it of the privilege of being securely established upon the throne of an everlasting dominion. To forfeit the honor of proclaiming the advent of the kingdom of the Lord of hosts in all the 5 continents of the globe would silence those praises of its majesty and greatness that otherwise would echo throughout the whole earth. Such vacillation, failure, or neglect, the American believers, the ambassadors of the faith of Baha'u'llah will, I am firmly convinced, never permit. Such a trust will never be betrayed. Such hopes can never be shattered. Such a privilege will never be forfeited, nor will such praises remain unuttered. Nay, rather, the present generation of this blessed, this repeatedly blessed community will go from strength to strength and will hand on as the first century draws to a close to the generations that must succeed it in the second, the torch of divine guidance, undimmed by the tempestuous winds that must blow upon it, that they in turn, faithful to the wish and mandate of Abdul Baha, may carry that torch with that self-same vigor, fidelity, and enthusiasm to the darkest and remotest corners of the earth. There we are, dear friends, paragraphs 103 through 107. Incredible, incredible paragraph set. Here, the beloved guardian is reiterating his warning. And when I say reiterating his warning, talking about these events of unimaginable magnitude that we read in paragraph 103. And this is an incredible paragraph. So what I'm going to see, talking about dangers, however sinister, right? However bewildering, must never befog their visions. And events of unimaginable magnitude, with ordeals more severe than any that humanity has as yet experienced. So here the beloved guardian is warning the friends of that dear events that are coming. But these events should not hamper the onward march of the cause. Also, I also wanted to highlight something else. Let me see. Okay. Oh, yes, excellent. So, and the other point I wanted to make is also the terminology here of the beloved guardian. He has mentioned the same words in a previous paragraph. So we're going to be looking at that and going back, as they say, so that you can see that this is per se the second time now the beloved guardian is directly warning the American Baha'i community, the North American Baha'i community, really the Baha'i community, on the events that are coming up. What are these events that are coming up so that the Baha'i community prepares themselves, does not get shocked by what is going to be coming, and does not get hampered by, and so the onward march of the cause continues unimpeded. So let us get into it. We could go through all of those paragraphs, but we're going to get into our study. Here we go. Okay. So in this paragraph set, the beloved guardian is warning the North American Baha'i community of events of unimaginable magnitude in the remaining years of the first century of the Baha'i era that may threaten as well as undermine the efforts of the community in winning the goals of the 7-year plan. And such events are the result of the decay of the old order, driven by the twin processes of integration and disintegration towards the establishment of the world order of Baha'u'llah. The beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi is also emphasizing the first 7-year plan as the initial stage, keyword, initial stage, in the implementation of the tablets of the divine plan and stepping stone to the accelerated expansion of the faith in the 2nd century of the Baha'i era. So this is just a stepping stone. That was the words of the beloved guardian. So the major key points that we're also going to be addressing in this paragraph set: the outbreak of the Second World War. Here the beloved guardian is foreshadowed a time of inconceivable horror. Okay, December 25th, 1938, as you all know, the World War II broke out 1939, so just 9 months after. The war embroiled more than 30 countries, and there are estimates that around 35 to 60 million people were killed. Now think about it, dear friends, 35 to 60 million people. That is a staggering difference between 35 million and 60 million people. It just shows how devastational this war was, how many people lost their lives during this conflict. Millions of people were the victims of famine and disease, as well these epidemics, and around 5.7 million Jews to 6 million Jews. The exact number is they're not even sure, but it's between 5.7 million to 6 million Jews, and half of them from Poland died in the Nazi concentration camps, these death camps. So again, this was the numbers of atrocities during this period are staggering. The loss of life, the displacement of peoples from one place to another. And we're just seeing what a conflict in Ukraine does, in a sense. And this is just the start of that conflict, but the loss of life, the displacement of humanity, the wastage of resources, and we see. But this war, the Second World War, was on a scale unheard of, unimaginable magnitude. This is so the beloved guardian also addresses these processes of integration and disintegration. And these are two aspects of a greater plan of God, whose ultimate objectives are the unity of the human race, as well as the peace of all mankind. We're going to be talking about these. And in the Unfoldment of Civilization, the Unfoldment of Divine Civilization, the last letter of the World Order of Baha'u'llah, the last letter, which you're like, Ehsan, where is that? This is the World Order of Baha'u'llah. In this letter, the last one, which is, I'm just going to pull it up for you so you can see it. Say, okay, Ehsan, I know what you're talking about now. Okay. The Unfoldment of World Civilization. And this one is, you can find this on page 161 of the World Order of Baha'u'llah Selected Letters. And this one was written March 11th, 1936, okay? As opposed to the Advent of Divine Justice, which was written December 25th, 1938, okay? And this one has in it, on page 165 in the Unfoldment of World Civilization, it has a section called the Process of Integration, as well as, talking about the pangs of death and birth, as well as talking about the collapse of Islam and Christian institutions. So talking about the processes much more in depth on this twin processes of integration as well as disintegration. So that would be the letter to really explore these much more in depth, these processes of integration and disintegration, okay? So the integration process is the result of the steady consolidation and growth of the faith. So That's one process, the integration process, the result of the steady consolidation and growth of the faith. Then there's the other process, the disintegration process. And this is the decline and annihilation of the outworn religious and secular institutions of the old order. So two processes at play, okay? And we're going to talk about them in much greater detail. The first 7-year plan was a preliminary stage in the great scheme envisioned for the North American Baha'i community in undertaking the responsibilities they were charged with by Abdu'l-Baha in the tablets of the divine plan. And the word the beloved guardian said is just a stepping stone. I love that terminology of the beloved guardian. The beloved guardian stresses that the North American Baha'i community should not be content with what they achieve in the first 7-year plan, but should reach for greater victories in future plans. In the words the beloved guardian says, they should not rest on their laurels, so not be content with what they achieve in the first 7-year plan, but they should reach for greater victories in future plans. All right, let's get into our study, dear friends. So here we are, paragraph 103, right? We've now covered we've covered now 102 paragraphs. Quite impressive. And so if I pop quiz my dear friend Jeremiah, he shouldn't be, having an Advent of Divine Justice handy. So I'm going to pop quiz him. How many paragraphs are there in Advent of Divine Justice? Oh, he's like, I have no clue, right? So the answer is it's 124 paragraphs, okay? So we are right now on paragraph 103. So we're getting to, as they say, the tail end of the Advent of Divine Justice, okay? The beloved guardian is highlighting that what he described in previous paragraphs, and we're going to go look back because this is a master letter, okay? This truly is a master letter. And the mind of the beloved guardian is on a different level. So how he has written it is truly amazing. So he first pens it and with absolute love to the North American Baha'i community. Then he warns them of these events that are coming up. And we're going to see, and we're going to see how that ties together. Then he praises the North American Baha'i community. What other community? What other community, if you remember in paragraph 17? But he also warns the Baha'i community of also the laxity of moral character that is around them, literally the greater community. The laxity of moral character, the corruption, and all of the materialism. Remember, sea of materialism that surrounds the Baha'i community and has been per se seeping into the American Baha'i community. And he says that you have to be on guard, protect yourselves. So he says, arm yourselves. And that's why now the beloved guardian says, we have to have these spiritual prerequisites for the success, right? And we talked about these in great lengths in the Advent of Divine Justice, namely a rectitude of conduct, a chaste and holy life, and freedom from all racial prejudices. And this was for the purpose of creating this new race of men, right? To set yourselves apart, as well as to vindicate the truths of this faith. Okay, if you want to prove that this faith is true, you have to be set apart. That's why the word the beloved guardian uses is diametrically opposed, right? To the habits, the faults, and the tendencies of degenerate and degraded society. You have to be diametrically opposed to that type of society. So that's the words the beloved guardian says. We have to be diametrically opposed. And so he sets these as the standard, the rectitude of conduct, the chaste and holy life, and this freedom from racial prejudices. Then he's in paragraph, later on in paragraph 65, then he goes and talks more at great length, talking about now you have to equip your mind, right? To be able to become a vehicle of teaching. You have to learn the concepts, the tenets, the fundamentals of the faith. And so that if you want to teach and become a proponent of teaching, which should be the purpose and the fundamental purpose as a Baha'i, to be a mouthpiece, to be a teacher of the cause. And this is really the first 7-year plan that the beloved guardian is. And then after that, he then starts talking about pioneering. Why? Because that's the second part of the 7-year plan, is to go pioneering, to open the countries of Latin America, right? So then, as we talked about all the pioneers, the great ladies, and all and they took on the predominating share of the work, preponderating share of the work and workload. And now we're at paragraph 103. At this point in the letter, this master letter, the beloved guardian is now tying it back to paragraph 4 and 5, which is an incredible art, because he has that vision of the whole letter. And so I'm going to show you how he does that, okay? So the North American Bahá'ís, and so here he talks about the 7-year plan duration of the plan. The beloved guardian is now pointing out may be pregnant with events of unimaginable magnitude, okay? So if you were starting at the very beginning in paragraph 4 and 5, you may even remember these very slides, because this is what transpired. War, conflict, and crises have always been a major characteristic of human history. However, the dynamics of the world upheaval that started in the early 19th century were fundamentally different. In paragraph 4, which I'm going to pull for you right now, because I want you to see how this paragraph 103 is so incredibly tied to the first warning of the beloved guardian in paragraph 4. In paragraph 4, it says, these recurrent crises with ominous frequency and resistless force are afflicting an ever-increasing portion of the human race, must of necessity continue, however impermanently, to exercise in a certain measure their baleful influence upon a world community which has spread its ramifications to the uttermost ends of the earth. How can the beginnings of a world upheaval, right? Unleashing forces that are so gravely deranging the social, the religious, the political, and the economic equilibrium of organized society, throwing into chaos and confusion political systems, racial doctrines, social conceptions, cultural standards, religious associations, and trade relationships. How can such agitations on a scale so vast, so unprecedented, fail to produce any repercussions on the institutions of a faith of such tender age, whose teachings have a direct and vital bearing on each of these spheres of human life and conduct? Then I tie it to paragraph 5, okay? This is the language that mirrors paragraph 103 directly. Here, let's read this one. It says, little wonder, therefore, if they who are holding aloft the banner of so pervasive a faith, so challenging a cause, find themselves affected by the impact of what? These world-shaking forces. Do we see this word, world-shaking forces? Yeah, it's exactly in paragraph 103. And in paragraph 103, it says the exact world-shaking crises, right? So it says, and this is in paragraph 103, it says, far from yielding in their resolve, far from growing oblivious of their task, they should at no time, however much buffeted by circumstances, forget that the synchronization of such world-shaking crises with the progressive unfoldment and fruition of their divinely appointed task is itself the work of providence, the design of an inscrutable wisdom, and the purpose of an all-compelling will. I paused right there. But you can see here in this the beloved guardian is talking in paragraph 4 and paragraph 5, warning. It's like red flag. The beloved guardian is holding up, letting the Baha'is know that there is a crisis about to occur in the world, right? So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, so here we go. Chaos and confusion are daily increasing in the world. They will attain such intensity as to render the frame of mankind unable to bear them. Then will men be awakened. This is from His Holiness Abdul Baha. So this is also from Baha'u'llah. This is Baha'u'llah speaking. And I'll let our dear friend Jeremiah read this one. This is, as we're talking about chaos and confusion, these events of unimaginable magnitude in paragraph 103, the words of the beloved guardian warning. And so this is from Baha'u'llah. Carry on, dear Jeremiah.
His Holiness Baha'u'llah had discerned the signs, the convulsions, and had warned humanity. The winds of despair are, alas, blowing from every direction, and the strife that divideth and afflicteth the human race is daily increasing. The signs of impending convulsions and chaos can now be discerned, inasmuch as the prevailing order appeareth to be lamentably defective. I beseech God, exalted be his glory, that he may graciously awaken the peoples of the earth, may grant that the end of their conduct may be profitable unto them, and aid them to accomplish that which beseemeth their station.
Excellently read. So the winds of despair are alas blowing from every direction, and the strife that divideth and afflicteth the human race is daily increasing. And we could see this makes total absolute sense in that period of 1938, with where 30 countries got embroiled in World War II, with 35 to 60 million people losing their lives. So it's an incredible, per se, prognostication from His Holiness Baha'u'llah, for that manifestation of God, his divine foresight to see the events that were coming. Here, so this is the last slide I want to share. Humanity had ignored the revelation of Baha'u'llah and his warnings. At the time the advent of divine justice was written, the massive bloodshed of World War I, 1914 to 1918, had ended, but the nations of the world were relentlessly preparing for World War II. In paragraph 4, the beloved guardian refers to those crises that were afflicting a large proportion of humanity with tremendous force as the beginning of this world upheaval. Undoubtedly, the Baha'i world community and the young institutions of the faith were bound to be affected by the adverse effects of such an upheaval. It's so crazy in the sense, that humanity has not learned, This is 1939, 40. And these pictures, you would think, that looks like Ukraine today, just kind of like, what's up? Has humanity not learned anything? I mean, what's going on? Why is humanity still, per se, in a level of spiritual infancy, in the sense of not realizing we are one species, one family, one common brotherhood, that you cut off one finger, the whole hand hurts, and we see it on the economics level, we see it on every level of this planet, and we see we sanction one country and the whole world is hurting. We go to war with one country, the whole world is hurting. And it's the reality that we are so dependent as a species on each other. But yet we constantly are at war, like little children. And our Heavenly Father comes and says, please, dear children, this is how to do it, how to get along. This is your guidance. But our Heavenly Father is not going to, per se, whip us and say, bash our heads in and say, this is how to do it. But he gives the guidance lovingly and presents it to us because we are not robots. He could instantly say, says, how many times tablets he says, I have the power in my hand and authority. I could snap of my fingers, the whole world would bow down. But we're not robots. So he presents it lovingly and gives us the guidance. But as a species, we love to go be obstinate. We're like crazy adolescents. We turn our head to our parents or our teachers and do whatever we want, and it's to our demise. And we're seeing it and we're living it. This is the reality. And in that paragraph 5, which echoes the same language as paragraph 103 that we're studying in this paragraph set. Paragraph 5, talking about these world-shaking forces. That's the beloved guardian says in paragraph 5, and in paragraph 103, the words is world-shaking crises. He even goes further. I mean, the forces is talking about the forces of materialism, talking about the forces of corruption, talking about the forces of racism, and the forces of, I would even think, all of those forces, right? But here in paragraph 103, he talks about these world-shaking crises. It's like, oh my gosh, he's really giving the world a warning, especially the North American Baha'i community, right? He says they find themselves affected by the impact of these world-shaking forces. Little wonder if they find that in the midst of this whirlpool of contending passions, their freedom has been curtailed, their tenets contemned, their institutions assaulted, their motives maligned, their authority jeopardized, their claim rejected. And so we saw what happened with the Baha'i communities, specifically of Germany, during World War II. So the Baha'i community of Germany, per se, was momentarily eclipsed during the war. So we're jumping back into now paragraph 103 set, okay? I just wanted to jump to paragraphs 4 and 5 to see how the language of the beloved guardian is consistent. Warning, warning, warning of this period of time. The North American Bahá'ís, he emphasizes, must not be deflected from their focus. So the beloved guardian say, focus, Bahá'ís, focus on what your goal is. Do not get distracted by these events that are around you. And your resolution must be firm and not be affected by the crises and dangers that will affect your country and the world during this period. The beloved guardian specifically is pointing out that the dangers should not diminish their newborn faith. The strife and confusion must not darken their vision. The tribulations must not shake their will. The threats must not undermine their loyalty, as well as the upheavals must not turn them from their direction of action. And this is from 1 Corinthians verses 15 through 58. It says, therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. I found that so apt, so beautiful from the Gospels. It says, therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always. This is from, you could hear the words, the beloved guardian saying the exact same thing here. You can see His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha saying this exact same words, and be steadfast, immovable, always. And so let's go to the World Order of Baha'u'llah. This is in the World Order of Baha'u'llah. This is also a letter from the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi. And this is in page 188. This is in the letter of the unfoldment of world civilization. Okay, so this is that last letter that I mentioned, the 7th letter of the beloved guardian in the World Order of Baha'u'llah. This is what the beloved guardian writes. He says, the passionate and violent happenings that have in recent years strained to almost the point of complete breakdown, the political and economic structure of society, are too numerous and complex to attempt, within the limitations of this general survey, to arrive at an adequate estimate of their character, nor have these tribulations, grievous as they have been, seemed to have reached their climax and exerted the full force of their destructive power. The whole world, wherever and however we survey it, offers us the sad and pitiful spectacle of a vast and enfeebled and moribund organism, which is being torn politically and strangulated economically by forces it has seized to either control or comprehend. The Great Depression, the aftermath of the severest ordeals humanity had ever experienced, the disintegration of the Versailles system, the recrudescence of militarism in its most menacing aspects, the failure of vast experiments and newborn institutions to safeguard the peace and tranquility of peoples, classes, and nations have bitterly disillusioned humanity and prostrated its spirits. Its hopes are, for the most part, shattered, its vitality is ebbing, its life strangely disordered, its unity severely compromised. So it's here, this is in the 1934, okay? This words here, this in the Unfoldment of World Civilization. This is this paragraph here from the Beloved Guardian. And you can see his keen insight to the crisis that the world is in, these severe ordeals that the world is undergoing, the whole world, wherever and however we survey it. So the Beloved Guardian is truly an incredible surveyor of the whole world. And if you remember from your readings of The Priceless Pearl, the Beloved Guardian would constantly read newspapers and be very much apprised of the events that were going on during the in different countries and knowing what was going on in the world. And so he's giving, it's literally like his fingers are on the pulse of every event and of the whole world. And he's giving his feedback of the life, truly the life of what is going on at this point in time in the world. And the words here that he chooses are so bleak and so dire. The words he chooses, I just wanted to point out a few words here. The whole world, wherever and however we survey it, offers us the sad and pitiful spectacle of a vast and enfeebled and moribund organism. Moribund, it means it's dead. It's a dead organism. He's saying the whole world is a pitiful, enfeebled, dead organism. Could that be any more bleak? This is in 1934, and so now we're in 1938 with the Advent of Divine Justice, tail end, December 25th, and he's writing with the same language, talking about these events of unimaginable magnitude that are coming up, warning the North American Baha'i community that this is at the climactic point of something that is about to happen. And he's warning the Baha'is that these events are about to happen. And you can see in some of these pictures, these are events of World War II, the marching and explosions and the taking of countries, villages. This was events during World War II. So 2 years into the plan, as you know, in 1937, the plan was launched on September 1st, 1939. So literally 9 months after this letter, the Second World War broke out and continued until September 2nd, 1945, 1 year after the end of the 7-year plan. This war enmeshed more than 30 countries of the world, representing more than 100 million people grouped into two opposing alliances. The major players were the Axis players, Germany, Italy, Japan, as well as the Allies, France, Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union, as well as China to a lesser extent. Although there are no accurate figures available, there are estimates that around 35 to 60 million people were killed. It has been challenging to determine the number of people who were injured or permanently disabled, making it the most violent as well as the largest war in human history. Eastern Europe had the highest human loss, with Poland losing 20% of its pre-war population. Yugoslavia and Soviet Union around 10%. And so here is a few headlines. Hitler opens war, bombs Polish cities. This is when the war opened. Hitler's forces attack Poland by the sea. So these are the announcements of war when it started, the invasion of Poland. There were millions and millions who became victims of famine and disease epidemics in China and East Asia, in addition to those who died in battles as the result of bombardment. And around 5,700,000 Jews. The number quoted most commonly is 6 million, but the term, the more closer is this 5 to 700,000 Jews. And there was, as there was also a good number of them were gypsies and other groups within this 6 million. They died in Nazi concentration camps, these death camps, which I encourage you to learn, study, be well knowledgeable about. And if you say, if someone asks, it says, Ehsan, why should I learn about the concentration camps and everything? I would say the reason is because we should be knowledgeable about the atrocities of humanity. This is very important because we are one species. We should be knowledgeable about what our species has done to each other. What have we done? It's part of our common history. If we love each other, truly, genuinely love each other, you know, if I love my dear African-American brother, her African-American sister, I should be knowledgeable about African-American history. I should be knowledgeable about all the history, such as the Tulsa Massacre, and be able to talk about it knowledgeably. So I should be knowledgeable about history events. So if I am knowledgeable about the events of the concentration camps, I can speak with, my heart would be tenderized, as they say. It would be touched when I speak to my dear Jewish friends and the atrocities that befell them at the hands of another human. You see what I'm saying? So this is a way of tenderizing the hearts, opening our minds, creating a space of love between each other. So this is why, for example, mandated by the German authorities after the war, that every German should become visit the German concentration camps. Every child should visit the German concentration camps. It should be part of the schooling of all Germans. Why? So that this would never happen again, okay? But it is also a way of, per se, opening our hearts to eliminate any form of prejudice. This is, as a Baha'i, we should have that as our hallmark standard, elimination of all forms of prejudice. And how do we eliminate all forms of prejudice? Very easily, actually. Knowledge is one of them. The more that you learn about another culture, the more that you learn about another group, you lose the fears. You lose the misconceptions, whatever you've been told. For example, one of the things that people often fear the most is foods of another culture. And some people like, I don't know. I mean, they may not have this misconception of, oh, I don't want to try that. It looks weird. It might smell different or whatever, So they don't want to try it. And so they just don't, I don't want to try it. But once you get over yourself, eliminate that fear and try it, okay? You actually may like it. And actually, once you like it, that may be your favorite thing. Maybe your to-go, what you want to do. And that creates a way to enter into that space and that environment. And you have a topic of conversation between another culture and that culture. And that creates, per se, a topic of conversation, a topic of love between cultures. And that's why we have to get over ourselves. Anyway, I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but that's something that we have to, per se, work as Baha'is to get over our fears. Anyway, so this is, as you can see in some of these slides, they're even hard to look at. And the reality is, this is actually pictures from the 1940s. It's even hard to watch the news currently with what's going on in the events in Ukraine. This is current events that are still happening. They're actually even talking about camps that are going on in current news, that they were rounded up for elimination. So the reality is, humanity has still not progressed in the sense of these type of atrocities. But you can see that these were events that were happening around the world. Apart from the fact that humanity has also discovered the technology of atomic bomb, and this weapon that was created and was also very on the brink of being created by also the Germans. And it was very close that they nearly invented also the atomic bomb during World War II. The United States, during the Manhattan Project, discovered it and the technology of it. But this type of weaponry, God forbid that it's used in a conflict, inflicts an incredible toll of loss of life. And so I'll just show you. So this atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima, it just wiped the city clean. So you can see on the left, this is the city, okay? And this is the after. It's just gone, vaporized. There's nothing there. It was just, and then Nagasaki. You can see all the houses and infraroads. And on the right, there's nothing there. It's just completely vaporized. And how did that happen? It's because I don't want to get onto the technical details of a nuclear bomb. You can read this and study this yourself. And that's really not the topic of conversation. But the impact of a nuclear weapon, it creates such a heat that it vaporizes. It creates such a heat that it melts. Even the sand turns to glass. And it creates such a firestorm that even any structure within the radius of the impact is just gone. And also the blowout from a nuclear weapon just blows anything and any structure. And those were often wooden structures. So just blasts everything out of the impact zone. So this is the type of technology that we had and currently even have for war. So the human mind has developed such an incredible, intelligence for destruction. But where is the human mind for bringing us together? You see what I'm saying? We have the incredible mind for, as they say, for disintegration, destruction. But where is the human mind for bringing of the hearts together? And this is from Abdul Baha. When the winds blow severely, rains fall fiercely, the lightning flashes, the thunder roars, the bold descends, and storms of trial become severe. Grieve not, for after this storm, verily, the divine spring will arrive. I found that a very beautiful quote from His Holiness Abdul Baha. He says, do not be troubled by these severe winds that are blowing. And it's very echoing the same beloved paragraph 103 from the Beloved Guardian, where the Beloved Guardian is per se warning of events of unimaginable magnitude that are about to face the whole Baha'i community at this point in time. And here Abdul Baha is saying, do not worry about these severe the rains that are going to be falling, these fierce lightning flashes, the thunder roaring, because after the storm, the divine spring will arrive. Very beautiful. So, and this is obviously, and I encourage you to read the pivotal letter in 1941, The Promised Day is Come. And this was written by the Beloved Guardian too. And this is the opening paragraph, which is such an incredible statement of the Beloved Guardian, where the Beloved Guardian is talking about this tempest unrestrained. And this is a statement made in 1941, as I mentioned. The Beloved Guardian is warning humanity of these impending calamities destined to inflict humanity. The Beloved Guardian states, a tempest unrestrained in its violence, unpredictable in its course, catastrophic in its immediate effects, unimaginably glorious in its ultimate consequences, is at present sweeping the face of the earth. Its driving power is remorselessly gaining in range and momentum. Its cleansing force, however, much undetected, is increasing with every passing day. Humanity, gripped in the clutches of its devastating power, is smitten by the evidences of its resistless fury. It can neither perceive its origin nor probe its significance, nor discern its outcome. Bewildered, agonized, and helpless, it watches this great and mighty wind of God invading the remotest and fairest regions of the earth, rocking its foundations, deranging its equilibrium, sundering its nations, disrupting the homes of its peoples, wasting its cities, driving into exile its kings, pulling down its bulwarks, uprooting its institutions, dimming its lights, and harrowing up the souls of its inhabitants. So here in the opening statement in Promised Day is Come, the Beloved Guardian is talking about this tempest unrestrained. What is the Beloved Guardian talking about? He's talking about this force, this God-born force, right, of disintegration. He's talking about this force that is this mighty wind of God. He's invading the remotest and fairest regions of the earth. And it's deranging its equilibrium. Remembering, it's upsetting the equilibrium of the whole world. And this is the force of disintegration. And this is from the Beloved Guardian. We should not, however, forget that an essential characteristic of this world is hardship and tribulation, and that it is by overcoming them that we achieve our moral and spiritual development. So it's essential, right? You got to have hardship. You can't be just living in a crystal palace, and someone bringing you, as they say, all the good things.
Speak for yourself, Ehsan.
It would be nice, right, Jeremiah? It would be nice. But the Beloved Guardian says, an essential characteristic of this world is hardship and tribulation. Why? We talked about that in the part 16 on tests and tribulations. Because when, if we say we believe, you got to be put to the test, you know? For example, when a teacher says, now I've given all the work and to you, you have to prove that you know what I have given to you. So he gives you a test. So the requirements is we will be tested. So, and that test often is not going to be easy. You got to be tested. So this is the requirement. And this is also another one. I'm going to get my dear friend Jeremiah to read this one.
Son, I remember in school, tests I was never very good at tests. I barely passed them, but I realized in life the tests, I feel like I failed them all the time. But we'll go ahead and continue. Ours, rather, the duty, however confused the scene, however dismal the present outlook, however circumscribe the resources we dispose of, to labor sincerely, confidently, and unremittingly to lend our share of assistance in whichever ways circumstances may enable us to the operation of the forces which are marshaled and directed by Baha'u'llah, are leading humanity out of the valley of misery and shame to the loftiest summits of glory, of power and glory. Shoghi Effendi.
Excellently read. Thank you. So ours is what? Ours is the duty, however dismal this present outlook, however bad it gets, but however circumscribe the resources. Ours is the duty to do what? Labor serenely. Serenely means calmly, not be affected by what's going on in the world. Confidently and unremittingly means we do not stop continuously to lend our share of assistance in whichever way circumstances may enable us to the operation of the forces which as marshaled, I love that word. Beloved God uses all these cool words. Marshaled is like the forces of an army, marshaled and directed by who? Our supreme commander, Baha'u'llah, right? Marshaled and directed by Baha'u'llah are leading humanity out of the valley of misery and shame to the loftiest summits of power and glory. So cool. I love it. It says, do not get down. Do not get, because what does depression do? Makes you inactive. It makes you sullen. It makes you tired. It makes you, you lose faith. You lose confidence. So the beloved guardian says, do not let this happen. The events of the world are going to be dire. The events of the world are going to be tragic. The events of the world are going to be disasters. The events of the world, do not let these events of unimaginable magnitude affect you. He's warning the Bahá'ís. He says, do not let this happen. And then we move to this awesome letter. This is the incredible letter written by the research department of the Supreme Body, Universal House of Justice, the Century of Light. I encourage you all to reread this letter. So in Century of Light, the ruin that human race has brought upon itself during the 20th century as a result of the process of disintegration is portrayed. This is from the Universal House of Justice in Century of Light. The loss of life alone has been beyond counting. And we talked about that. Between 35 to 60 million people dead. It's beyond counting. The disintegration of basic institutions, of social order, the violation, indeed the abandonment of standards of decency, the betrayal of the life of the mind through surrender to ideologies as squalid as they have been empty, the invention and deployment of monstrous weapons of mass annihilation, the bankrupting of entire nations and the reduction of masses of human beings to hopeless poverty, the reckless destruction of the environment of the planet, such are only the more obvious in a catalog of horrors unknown to even the darkest of ages past. So here the Supreme Body, Universal House of Justice, is reviewing the 20th century. And this is their review in Century of Light, the words here from the Supreme Body. And you can see how, per se, how truly sick humanity has been. You know, how absolutely atrocious has the behavior has been in the there's two words of the beloved guardian that whenever I think of these type of occurrences, the word that the beloved guardian used was spiritually bankrupt. You know, I love the game Monopoly. It's not a good game on any level on a spiritual level. Probably has destroyed more families than any other game in the history of games. But in that game, the goal is to put your opponent in a state of bankruptcy. Okay. And the word spiritually bankrupt really should hit home. And that is really where humanity is, spiritually bankrupt. If they're spiritually bankrupt, what do they have? They just have their material thoughts. They're just only thinking out for themselves. That's why the beloved in the Advent of Divine Justice, it says drowning in a sea of materialism, because they have no soul in the sense. They're not focused on anything beyond their own carnal pleasures, their own desires, their own thoughts. So in reality, that's why they only care about themselves, promotion of themselves, and then they heighten their nationalism, so that it became their countries and their own power and wealth and greed and taking over everything. But they never cared about truly another. They didn't care about life. They didn't care about. So that level of spiritual bankruptcy is prevalent during this entire period. And it's still part and parcel of today. It has not gone away. And this is from Abdul Baha on the right. The gift of God to this enlightened age is the knowledge of the oneness of mankind and of the fundamental oneness of religion. War shall cease between nations, and by the will of God, the most great peace shall come. The world will be seen as a new world, and all men will live as brothers. If you look at the talks of Abdul Baha, which I encourage you all to do, right? And not just look at them, study them deeply. And I'm not just talking about the talks of Abdul Baha in the United States in promulgation of universal peace. I'm not just talking about the talks in Paris talks, or the talks in London, in Abdul Baha in London. I'm talking about the complete panoply of the talks of Abdul Baha. You will see that the vast majority of the talks of Abdul Baha, you will see that he spoke more on the subject of peace, on the subject of harmony, than pretty much any other subject. Look at it. Look at the subjects of his talks. And if that is the case, then in our summer schools, in our talks as Baha'is, because look at me, follow me, be as I am, right? So if Abdul Baha is speaking on these subjects, then we should be speaking on those subjects. That should be our subject. That should be our topic of conversation. As Baha'is, we should speak on the subject of peace more than anybody else. In fact, we should be the most knowledgeable proponents of the subject of peace, so that when a crisis in the world is happening, they're like, oh, the Baha'is are actually talking about the subject of peace. Maybe they have an answer to this subject. They have a solution, because as Baha'is, we should be the ones speaking on this subject. It's wonderful to speak on equality of women and men, or this subject or that subject. But look to what Abdul Baha spoke about more than anything else. It's very interesting. He spoke about peace and how to practically bring it into the world, right? The beloved guardian brought the framework to the pattern of peace. But Abdul Baha spoke about peace, the unification of humanity, one brotherhood, one family, the oneness of mankind. This is the subjects that we should be speaking about. So carrying on, dear friends, paragraph 103. The beloved guardian is describing these two parallel and synchronized processes of the unfoldment of the divine plan and the world-shaking crises as the design and work of the divine will, directing and controlling the fortunes of the faith and destiny of humanity. So there's two processes, and they are parallel, okay, that are occurring simultaneously, okay? So we're going to talk about this. Here's a real cool quote, okay, that I came across. This is from Norman Cousins. He says, integration is a basic law of life. When we resist it, so integration is a basic law of life. When we resist it, disintegration is the natural result, both inside and outside of us. Thus, we come to the concept of harmony through integration. So there are a number of passages the beloved guardian describes the historical process unfolding in the 20th century in the context of these two processes of integration and disintegration. So I'll cite two for you. One, as I mentioned, 1934, the letter, The Unfoldment of World Civilization, is the seventh letter, the last letter in the World Order of Baha'u'llah Letters. Also, his letter in 1941, Promised Day is Come. Okay, those two I'm citing as awesome letters that you can get a much more in-depth look at this processes of integration and disintegration, okay? So let's now explore what the beloved guardian is talking about. Integration, disintegration. I'm a bit confused, you know, when I have heard these terms. What is it? What is that song talking about? So let's get into it, okay? In a letter dated July 5th, 1938. So this is a few months before Advent of Divine Justice. This was written to the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States and Canada. The beloved guardian reiterates these crises facing humanity in the remaining years of the first century of the Baha'i era. Now, look how similar this language is to paragraph 103. Look at this. Pregnant indeed are the years looming ahead of us. The twin processes of internal disintegration and external chaos are being accelerated every day and are inexorably moving towards a climax. The rumblings that must precede the eruption of those forces that must cause the limbs of humanity to quake can already be heard. The time of the end, the latter years as foretold in the scriptures, are at long last upon us. The pen of Baha'u'llah, the voice of Abdul Baha have time and again, insistently, and in terms unmistakable, warned an unheeding humanity of impending disaster. The community of the most great name, the leaven that must leaven the lump, the chosen remnant that must survive the rolling up of the old, discredited, tottering order and assist in the unfoldment of a new one in its stead, is standing ready, alert, clear-visioned, and resolute. Pretty powerful, right? Here, the beloved guardian is saying we are literally in the end game, right? We are right now in the end game, the time of the end. We're in the latter years as foretold in the scriptures. He says these twin processes of internal disintegration and external chaos are being accelerated every day. And we are right now experiencing these rumblings. We're experiencing the quaking. And this is the beloved guardian, His Holiness Abdul Baha, His Holiness Baha'u'llah have all warned us, continued to warn us, and unmistakable, they have warned us, but humanity has not heeded this impending disaster. Humanity has ignored it. But the community of the most great name, the Baha'i community, the leaven that must leaven the lump, the chosen remnant that must survive the rolling up of this old, discredited, tottering order, must do what? We must stand ready, we must stand alert, and be clear-visioned and resolute. And this is in another message, okay? This again is in, let me pull this for you, dear friends. Yes, this is again in Unfoldment of World Civilization, which I encourage you to read this incredible letter. It's the 7th letter. In another message, the beloved guardian identifies the evidences of disintegration, okay? This is the words of the beloved guardian. He says, beset on every side, by the cumulative evidences of disintegration, of turmoil, of bankruptcy, serious-minded men and women in almost every walk of life are beginning to doubt whether society, as it is now organized, can, through its unaided efforts, extricate itself from the sloth into which it is steadily sinking. Every system, short of the unification of the human race, has been tried, repeatedly tried, and been found wanting. Wars again and again have been fought, and conferences without number have met and deliberated. Treaties, pacts, and covenants have been painstakingly negotiated, concluded, and revised. Systems of government have been patiently tested, have been continually recast and superseded. Economic plans of reconstruction have been carefully devised and meticulously executed, and yet crisis has succeeded crisis, and the rapidity with which a perilously unstable world is declining has been correspondingly accelerated. Made me think of the foundations of these systems are on quicksand. So no matter what they do, all these systems will collapse. It doesn't matter. Anything they do, the systems of government, anything they do, because nothing short of the unification of the human race, every system short of the unification of the human race, everything they try will fail. And that system, that the unification of the human race, is that solid foundation which is divine, and it's being brought by Baha'u'llah. And so that will be solid foundation. So anything else will fail. And this is why the words of the beloved guardian, they've tried everything, anything and everything they've tried.
I don't understand why it took me so long to realize that, honestly. You know?
Yeah. It's really interesting and enlightening words of the beloved guardian. So this is in that paragraph, it says, beset on every side by these cumulative evidences of disintegration, turmoil, bankruptcy, right? So I made this diagram here, this picture. Beset on every side by the cumulative evidences of disintegration, of turmoil, and bankruptcy. And if this person was an image of the world, beset on every side by disintegration, turmoil, bankruptcy. And that is the reality of the world. This is what is happening to the world. It is being beset by these crises. Now, this is my own illustration. Again, comparing these two processes of integration and disintegration. The beloved guardian exclaims, how striking, how edifying the contrast between the process of slow and steady consolidation that characterizes the growth of its infant's strength and the devastating onrush of the forces of integration that are assailing the outworn institutions, both religious and secular, of present-day society. So the process of integration is slow and steady. And the process of the disintegration is this onrush, ferocious force of disintegration. Now, where have we heard of slow and steady wins the race? Right? It's the great parable of the tortoise and the hare, and the tortoise and the hare from Aesop fables. And so that is the story of the tortoise and the hare, where slow and steady wins the race. It's doesn't matter that you're going slow, but you got to keep at it, you know? And that's the example of the tortoise. This tortoise had kept plodding along slowly, but steadily and continually. But in the Aesop fables, the hare, or some Americans call it the rabbit, it would suddenly rush ahead with a rapid speed, and then would look back at the tortoise and say, ha, 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 you know, you're so slow. I'm going to, then he sat down and took a nice rest and the hare or the rabbit fell asleep. And eventually the tortoise caught up and won the race. So in that fable of Aesop fable, it says the tortoise won the race because of he was slow and steady. And, you know, as there's also another lesson in it, pride comes before a fall. And so it was that we should not be proud in that sense of we should have that level of humility. So, but in this graphic that I put together, the slow and steady process is really the growth of this nascent Baha'i community. We shouldn't be so hard on our Baha'i community too, okay? Yeah, we're still at the beginning stages of it. You know, and so it's you know, and it's, but yeah, we should also work hard to grow this organism. And because it will eventually, per se, win the race. And we should work together, unified. Jeremiah, you have a question or something? Oh, no, you. Okay, very good. And so, yeah, we should work together, be unified, but be very aware of that this destructive force, this disintegrative force is rushing ahead, and both of these forces are at play. Okay, this is also something of that I also want you to know. These two forces are parallel. They're working in concert, parallel. These two forces of integration and disintegration. One much faster ahead, the disintegrative force, but they are parallel. The two parallel processes of integration and disintegration, associated respectively with the rising fortunes of God's infant faith and the sinking fortunes of the institutions of a declining civilization, he also refers to the process of disintegration as one of the two things that will attract people to the faith. Isn't that interesting? So as the world gets worse, as the lights of hope dim, as the world cataclysms increase, as the crises intensify, humanity will look for the light. This is see, as the God's infant faith. He says, as the sinking fortunes of these institutions of a declining civilization, right? He says two things that will attract people to the faith. He says, as the world gets worse and worse. In a letter written on his behalf to an individual, July 3rd, 1948, he says, there are two things which will contribute greatly to bringing more people into the cause more swiftly. One is the maturity of the Baha'is within their communities, functioning according to Baha'i laws and in the proper spirit of unity. And the other is the disintegration of society and the suffering it will bring in its wake. When the old forms are seen to be hopelessly useless, the people will stir from their materialism and spiritual lethargy and embrace the faith. So two things that will bring about more people entering into the cause of Baha'u'llah. The first will be the maturity of the Baha'is within their communities, functioning according to Baha'i laws and in proper spirit of unity, working together, advancing together, teaching together, and advancing together, hand in hand, marching, strength upon strength. That is the process of integration. The other one is the disintegration. It is when the old forms are seen to be hopelessly useless, and the people will stir from their materialism and spiritual lethargy. It's when the world gets increasingly worse, the non-Baha'i community will look around and they will see the Baha'i faith as the light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. So here's another quote I share with you. I'll let our dear friend Jeremiah read this one.
Shoghi Effendi expands further on how the leaders of religion and politics should turn their attention to the revelation of Baha'u'llah when they experience the bankruptcy of their ideas and the disintegration of the systems in which they once believed. Leaders of religion, exponents of political theories, governors of human institutions, who at present are witnessing with perplexity and dismay the bankruptcy of their ideas and the disintegration of their handiwork, would do well to turn their gaze to the revelation of Baha'u'llah and to meditate upon the world order, which, lying enshrined in his teachings, is slowly and imperceptibly rising amid the welter and chaos of present-day civilization. They need to have no doubt or anxiety regarding the nature, the origin, or validity of the institutions which the adherents of the faith are building up throughout the world. For these lie embedded in the teachings themselves, unadulterated and unobscured by unwarrantable inferences or unauthorized interpretations of his word.
Excellent, excellent. So this is page 23 of the World Order of Baha'u'llah. Okay, this is in the World Order of Baha'u'llah, Further Considerations. It's the second letter in the World Order of Baha'u'llah letters. Here, the beloved guardian is now turning to the leaders of religion. He says leaders of religion. He's like proclaiming. He says leaders of religion. He says exponents of political theories, governors of human institutions who are present witnessing with perplexity and dismay. So he's saying the leaders of religion, political leaders, governors of human institutions, which means the intellectuals. They're all witnessing perplexity. They have no idea what's going on. And dismay, the bankruptcy of their ideas and the disintegration of their handiwork. Then the beloved guardian is saying they would do well. He's talking to the leaders of religion, the political leaders, and the intellectuals, the governors of human institutions, they would do well to turn their gaze to the revelation of Baha'u'llah and to meditate upon this world order, which lying enshrined in his teachings is slowly and imperceptibly rising amid the welter and chaos of present-day civilization. So he's saying, you guys are the leaders of religion, these political leaders, the leaders of human thought. You have no idea what you're doing. You guys have no idea what you're doing, but you would do well to turn to this revelation of Baha'u'llah and look at this new organism that is emerging out of this soil, which is lying enshrined in his teaching, is slowly and imperceptibly rising. It just reminds me of a little sapling emerging out of the soil, right? They need have no doubt or anxiety regarding the nature, the origin, or the validity of the institutions which the adherents of the faith are building up throughout the world. For these lie embedded in the teachings themselves, unadulterated and unobscured by unwarrantable inferences or unauthorized interpretations of his word. So this is very important last line. He says, this faith is unadulterated or unwarrantable inferences, because in past dispensations, all the teachings were, per se, after the manifestation of God had passed away, they would make up their own teachings they would infer based upon this or that. But in this dispensation, we have been so privileged and protected by the covenant. His Holiness Abdul Baha, divine interpreter of the word of Baha'u'llah. Then after Abdul Baha, divine interpreter was the beloved guardian. And the beloved guardian was the divine interpreter. He was infallible in interpretation. So unadulterated and unobscured by unwarrantable inferences. So I couldn't just come and say, well, this is kind of like, I have an idea about what Baha'u'llah is saying, and then I write to, I can't do that. I have no right to make up something or my inferences on what, it says in the writings, and then per se write a book on my inference on that and, proclaim that, because it is protected. So here's my little graphic I created. The leaders of religion, and you can see them at the top, the leaders of religion, right? The exponents of political theory, and they're all, circling here, as well as the governors of human thought, and you can see them circling all around, would do well to turn their gaze to this revelation of Baha'u'llah. So that was my little graphic to show that they would do well to turn to this revelation of Baha'u'llah. And closing up this section, the beloved guardian has been warning us that we should be conscious not to be affected by the dark force generated through this disintegration process. This is an incredible letter. I want to show, this is a letter that was written in 1957. As you all know, the beloved guardian passed in that very same year, November 4th, 1957. So this is February 5th, 1957. And this was to the Spiritual Assembly of Atlanta, also called Hotlanta to some people. So the Spiritual Assembly of Atlanta, 1957, this is what he stated. Very interesting. The friends must at all times bear in mind that they are, in a way, like soldiers under attack. The world is at present in an exceedingly dark condition, spiritually. Hatred and prejudice of every sort are literally tearing it to pieces. We, on the other hand, are the custodians of the opposite forces, the forces of love, of unity, of peace and integration, and we must constantly be on our guard, whether as individuals or as an assembly or community, lest through us these destructive negative forces enter into our midst. In other words, we must beware lest the darkness of society become reflected in our acts and attitude, perhaps all unconsciously. Love for each other, the deep sense that we are a new organism, the dawn breakers of a new world order, must constantly animate our Baha'i lives. And we must pray to be protected from the contamination of society, which is so diseased with prejudice. So this is an incredible letter. I encourage you to look it up. This is the letter the beloved guardian wrote February 5th, 1957. It's also very key on the subject of elimination of racism, freedom from racial prejudices. And it was in this letter, 1957. You can see how the words of the beloved guardian, free from this contamination of society, which is so diseased with prejudice. But here in this extract, you can see the friends must at all times bear in mind that they are in a way like soldiers under attack. Yes, we're under attack constantly. In fact, we should reflect on what side are we on? At times, we might be so, lax. We actually might be on the dark side, and or because if we're not fighting for the forces of good, we're not doing anything. So you're not, and so in reality, you're part of the dark forces because you're caught up in the process of the current that is all around us. You have to be part of as it says, we have to be, on the other hand, take on the custodians of the opposite forces. The beloved guardian has talked about these dark forces over and over and over. But we as Baha'is, the Baha'is of the integration, the forces of integration, we have to take on the forces of love internally and be so strong with forces of love, of unity, of peace and integration. We must constantly be on guard. Now, as I mentioned earlier, sure, it should be part and parcel of our character, but we should also be the exponent, speak about these subjects constantly in our gatherings, in our community, in our workspaces. It should be very well known who and what we are, what we believe, and so if someone asked, or what is a Baha'i? They should know that we stand for love, we stand for unity, we stand for universal brotherhood, and we stand for these principles. It should be common speak in that sense, and so that if ever the case, in the near future, the world has become so bleak and they're looking for the answer, they say, I turn to the Baha'is. I know they have the solution. They're the ones that speak about peace. Let us turn to them. You see? And this is from Abdul Baha. It says, O army of God, when calamity striketh, be ye patient and composed. However afflictive your sufferings may be, stay ye undisturbed and with perfect confidence in the abounding grace of God. Brave ye the tempest of tribulations and fiery ordeals. How many times they say, be calm, be composed, be resilient, but keep at it. Do not give up, have that keep at it attitude. And then this awesome quote that our dear friend Devin Gundry has put to music and chants so lovely. He says, armed with the power of thy name, nothing can ever hurt me. And with thy love in my heart, all the world's afflictions can in no wise alarm me. And I think maybe I have one or two slides left. And so this is now just closing up this thoughts on these two processes of integration and disintegration, that they have been accelerating day by day since the time of the beloved guardian, resulting in the deepening of the crises facing humanity and the advancement of the faith and its institutions. And this is a letter from the Universal House of Justice, dated 27th April 2017. This is written to an individual. The features of the disintegration process in the context of the society we live in are described. This says one of the current features of the process of the disintegration of the old world order manifest in the United States is the increasing polarization and fragmentation that has come to characterize so much of political and social life. There has been a hardening of viewpoints, increased incivility and unwillingness to compromise or even entertain differing perspectives, and the tendency to automatically take sides and fight. Science and religion, two great lights that should guide human progress, are often comprised or swept aside. Matters of moral principle and questions of justice are reduced to intractable liberal or conservative viewpoints, and the country is increasingly divided along divergent lines. The words of the Supreme Body, so true, so true. I mean, you can turn on the TV on whether you watch CNN or Fox, you can see how divided our country is from the polarization of the political spheres. And we can see that this is a country that at least in my lifetime, I've seen it become even more polarized than ever. And I've seen it become the viewpoints, as he said, the House of Justice says, hardening of viewpoints, increased incivility, and unwillingness to compromise. Even I remember when I was much younger, people would be at least willing to compromise on subjects and talk about different subjects. Now people are so much more hard-headed and opinionated on subjects, and it's very, at least that's my observations, personal observations, but I see this as a reality, and here the Supreme Body is writing about this as that this is the case and common features of this process of disintegration. Lastly, the beloved guardian in paragraph 104 refers to this first 7-year plan as this initial stage in the implementation of the tablets of the divine plan and a stepping stone to the accelerated expansion of the faith in the 2nd century of the Baha'i era. I just want to pause there for 2 seconds. I know I'm reading this. If you recall, 1937, first 7-year plan was launched, right? 1937 launch. December 25th, 1938, Advent to Divine Justice is written. This letter where twice now I'm sharing where the beloved guardian says, do not let these events of unimaginable magnitude slow you down during this 7-year plan. Now, if you recall in our study, all the goals of the first 7-year plan were 1944. Now, 1944 was during World War II. The goals were still one. It is an incredible thing. The Baha'is still achieve their goals. And so that's why here the beloved guardian is saying and warned the Baha'i community of these events of unimaginable magnitude. Do not let these events hamper or impede the onward march of the cause. And the Baha'i community still managed to achieve the laurels. In paragraph 105, the beloved guardian cites His Holiness Abdul Baha, explaining that the full measure of the success of the North American Baha'i community is still unknown. And Abdul Baha hopes that the community in its worldwide efforts will be as successful as it has been at the home front. He then promises that when the American Baha'i community takes the message of Baha'u'llah to the far corners of the earth, as far as Australasia and the islands of the South Pacific, it will find itself securely established. Then will all the peoples of the earth praise this community for its majesty and greatness. Then, what an incredible paragraph set, 106, 107. The beloved guardian is stressing that this North American Baha'i community should not remain content with what they have already achieved in the first 7-year plan. It's like, yeah, we did a great job, people. We got an assembly in every single state, and we got an assembly in every province in Canada. We even went down to South America and we opened up those countries during this first 7-year plan. Amazing. So we're just going to rest now. And no, the beloved guardian says no, absolutely, categorically not. He says that would be tantamount to be going against the wishes of Abdu'l-Baha, as it would be equivalent to a betrayal of the trust placed on them by His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha in the Tablets of Divine Plan. The American Baha'is, this is from the beloved guardian, he says, the American Baha'is, he is confident, will not permit such a vacillation, failure, or neglect. Do not rest on your laurels, people. First, you got to have laurels. But this early American Baha'i community had laurels and stacks of the laurels. We got to win some laurels, people. We got to win victories. And where do we get? What is our call of action right now? Our call of action is currently the 9-year plan that has been unfolded by our supreme body, Universal House of Justice. So what this message, we first have to study it and then look to action and achieve victories in the call of action, right? So, but we should not rest on our laurels. Okay? Resting on your laurels. It means to be satisfied with your achievements and not make any effort to do anything else. That's what it means. It means I'm content. I did pretty good. I got my crown. Do not rest. And then this is such a cool quote from the beloved guardian. It says, we can never afford to rest on our oars, for if we do, we soon see ourselves carried downstream again. Wow, such a cool quote. Because we are rowing up against the tide, against the current. We're rowing against the current. If we think, oh wow, we're doing such a good job, we're now way up down the stream. The opposing forces, the dark forces, will push us right back. We cannot afford to rest. Our Supreme Commander, Baha'u'llah, is calling us to action. And this is another cool quote. And when I was putting this presentation together, I liked compiling these cool quotes. The teachings are not given to us to treasure and hide. Oh, I love this quote too. This is, the world is in great turmoil, and its problems seem to become daily more acute. We should therefore not sit idle. Otherwise, we would be failing in carrying out our sacred duty. Baha'u'llah has not given us his teachings to treasure them and hide them for our personal delight and pleasure. He gave them to us that we may pass them from mouth to mouth until all the world becomes familiar with them and enjoys their blessings and uplifting influence. I remember former Universal House of Justice member, Mr. Hooper Dunbar, when I was in the World Center, he said, Ehsan, the Baha'u'llah did not suffer 40 years of imprisonment, a poisoning by his half-brother, incredible suffering, torture, incredible pains, loss of his believers, and he did not come to build a nice library for you Baha'is. That you have, on your bookshelf, you have the Epistle to the Son of the Wolf. You got that book called Kitab-i-Iran, and you got that other book, Kitab-i-Ahdas, and you got this other one, Gleanings from the Writings of Baha'u'llah, and you have the whole set, as they say. Baha'u'llah didn't suffer imprisonment so that you have a bookshelf. And you're like, oh, I'm a Baha'i. I have all these nice books on my bookshelf, or bestsellers, as they say, for Baha'is. He did not come to, create a nice bestseller list. He came for you as Baha'is to be the transformative agents for this most great peace. He came so that you will be his fingers to implement this transformation of the world. That's why that you will be the new race of man. As the beloved guardian says, we should therefore not sit idle. We should be, otherwise we'll be failing in carrying out this sacred duty. Sacred duty, teaching. Baha'u'llah has not given his teachings to treasure them and hide them. It's like, if this faith of ours, I am a Baha'i. It's not, when I say I am a Baha'i, for a second, if I keep that to myself, it's not like I am like Smeagol or Gollum from Lord of the Rings, Baha'i faith, and I keep this lovely treasure to myself. No, we give this to the whole world. This is the greatest gift that we can share to the world. It is, you see what happens to, as they say, Smeagol, when he hoards that treasure to himself, he turns into a monster. This faith is meant to be shared. It is meant to be given. This is the beauty. Lastly, we got, I think this is our last slide, and then we'll close it down for today. Such remarks clearly show that the beloved guardian considered the first 7-year plan as just a preliminary stage in the great scheme he had envisioned for the North American Baha'i community, in undertaking the responsibilities with which they were charged by Abdu'l-Baha in the tablets of the divine plan. The consecutive plans introduced by the beloved guardian after the first 7-year plan for the North American Baha'i community, as well as other Baha'i communities around the world, well demonstrate his systematic approach, as well as absolute genius in developing the Baha'i administrative order, as well as preparing the Baha'i community worldwide for the election of the supreme body, the Universal House of Justice. And there we are, dear friends. Paragraph set 103 through 107 concludes. So, excellent. Any questions? Yeah, that was quite a exciting section. Now here the beloved guardian is again reiterating these events of unimaginable magnitude. And excellent, very good. Thank you very much, dear Jeremiah. Thank you. And there we are. Excellent. I will share the closing prayer. Thank you. Oh my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the host of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest. Abdu'l-Baha. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.